Well, welcome back to another episode of the Grow Your Clinic podcast. My name is Jack O'Brien, and we are having a fireside chat with another clinic owner today, the Spotlight series on clinic owners who are building clinics for good, clinics that are good and are doing good. And this is one for the ages. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. Fellow Novocastrian, someone who's been a legendary part of the Clinic Mastery community. Lauren Haskins, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm really well, Jack. Thanks so much for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. Listeners, Lauren is the owner and practice director at A Growing Understanding Speech Pathology around the traps in Newcastle, and is doing incredible things. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking your journey as a clinic owner, Lauren. But right at the top, if people want to check out your clinic, what are some of the URLs or perhaps social handles that they can do so to have a bit of a sneaky peek at A Growing Understanding?
It's a long business name, and you only really realize these things after you're working and operating in the business, but they can check us out on Facebook at A Growing Understanding, or on Instagram, we are Grow Understanding. And so we are quite active on our socials, but despite the long name, you can find us on socials using the full length of the business title.
Nice, nice. Well, listeners, we'll link that up over at clinicmastery.com/podcast for some of those easier links. Now, before we dive into your story, Lauren, you don't escape. We've got some icebreaker questions. So, are you ready to go?
I'm all set.
Okay. Number one, what are you reading right now?
I'm reading Jacinda Ardern's biography, so I'm not sure the authors who wrote it, but the title of it is Leading with Empathy. So really admire Jacinda Ardern, and really enjoying her biography about how she came into power, but also what her journey was like getting into that point of being Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Fascinating. Okay, number two, who inspires you?
Oh, so many people inspire me, but I do, probably the person that comes to mind at the moment is Brené Brown. I love a lot of her work, and I think she is one of the significant thought leaders of our time. And I really like that the stories and the information and the message that she sends about leading with compassion and care. And so I think, Brené Brown is someone that really inspires me. But it different on a personal and professional level too, because I am inspired by many of my friends and family and what they achieve in their personal life, but professionally inspired by many clinic owners that I come across, and colleagues that I work with. But I think on a big scale, I'd say Brené Brown is certainly someone that inspires me.
Nice. Okay. Number three, what did you want to be growing up?
Funny enough, I always wanted to be a speech pathologist. As soon as I knew what a speech pathologist was, I wanted to be a speech pathologist. So I think very early on, when you didn't know what speech pathologists were, I wanted to be a teacher. And then as I sort of was going through high school, I wanted to work with children, but I didn't necessarily want to work with a large group. I wanted to work more one-on-one with children. And my husband is a physiotherapist, and he's a few years older than me, and so he was studying physiotherapy when I was in high school, and we started to talk about what careers we were going to be going into and what they look like. And he shared with me, why don't you look at speech pathology? So as soon as I started to look at that degree, it made sense. It made sense, and always what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, and have narrowed down into that pediatric space as well, which aligns with working with children.
Amazing. It's not very often that we hear people who, wanted to be something as a kid and end up seeing that come to pass. So that's really interesting. And finally, what's a motto that you live by?
This one's the tricky one for me, because I tend to go into each year with intention. I don't like to say that I go into each year with a new resolution, but I like to have a word of the year or a motto that I go into, because I think that your motto changes all the time, because you're a different person today than what you were 12 months ago. But my motto and my the thing that I'm going for at the moment, and the thing that comes top of mind for me, is a motto by, or I guess, a quote by Maya Angelou, which says that, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So that's really top of mind for me with how I like to approach things at the moment, is really making sure that I consider how I make people feel.
That's awesome. I love it. All right, then can you connect the dots for us, Lauren? Talk us through the journey of study into then. Was speech pathology all that you envisaged it to be, as there's probably a romantic view of the profession in high school? Was it all that you thought it would be when you graduated?
Nope, not at all.
Lots of swallowing assessments
Not at
folding,
all.
probably.
I think, I grew up in Adelaide, and when my husband got his first job as a new graduate, we moved to Newcastle, and in New South Wales. We'd never been to Newcastle before moving here, and I completed my university degree here in Newcastle. So I think, it was a big lifestyle change to be moving away from family at such a young age and becoming very independent, working full time so that we could live and survive while I was, studying. And it got to the point where when I got to the end of my degree, I nearly didn't go into the profession. So I nearly took a completely different career path, and was planning on completing my degree, but nearly didn't go into a role because I was hearing how difficult it was to get work. And I really wasn't sure about where I wanted to head, and it didn't really align. I didn't see a future for myself in the profession, because I think the way that our university course is structured, you end with so much of a focus on adults and working with adults, just the way that the degree is structured here at Newcastle University, which is fine, but because I always wanted to work with children, it didn't align with my vision and what I wanted for speech pathology. But I was really fortunate that my husband was working in health, and he had colleagues who were speech pathologists, and they said to me, how about you come and do a 12-week locum with us, and that can be your first experience, and we will support you. And it was a semi-regional role, and I was able to get an experience in a diverse caseload. So I was able to work with adult outpatients, adult inpatients, and pediatric outpatients, but with lots of support from a really big, supportive, awesome allied health team. And that 12-week locum position ended up being about 6 or 7 years working full-time for New South Wales Health. And I then worked for further years throughout New South Wales Health, working in lots of different roles, and ended up moving a little bit closer to home and started to specialize in working with young children, in particular 0 to 5 years, and working with children with complex communication and feeding difficulties. And that career development for me pushed me to going as far as what I could professionally within the health service. And I got to the point where there were lots of opportunities for me to be able to do different work, so do some consulting work. I was approached to do some consulting for a not-for-profit organisation called Hannon. So in the paediatric therapy space, the Hannon Centre, which is based over in Canada, they provide a lot of support for parents and professionals who are working and who have children under 5 years of age who aren't yet talking, to be able to provide therapy to them. So I was approached by the Hannon Centre to consult for them and to become one of their instructors to train other speech pathologists in their programs. And I was approached to do some consulting work for some other organisations. Like I went over to Nauru and worked on the detention centre with asylum seekers and refugees over there. And so I was having those opportunities to do things outside of the health service. And so it was a really natural progression that I then looked to identify how I could set myself up to be able to take on those opportunities. And that's really how the private practice evolved, was that I started doing consulting and providing those sorts of roles in different organisations, and providing clinical supervision and support to other clinicians working for other not-for-profits or for health or for other private practices. And that's really how the private practice started. So I was working part-time for health and part-time for myself and doing some of the private practice stuff in early days.
Interesting. So, talk us through then some of the pragmatics of starting a clinic. Were you business minded or entrepreneurially minded, or you just wanted to create a service that was on your terms, really?
Yeah, that's really what it was, is creating something on my terms. I had two young children. At the time of opening up the practice, my daughter was 3 and my son was 5. And we were at the point where we were really wanting some flexibility in our personal lives as well. And I wanted to be able to control what it was that I was doing professionally, but we wanted to balance that with family too. So we wanted to have that autonomy with the service that we were operating in.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise too, one of my core values is around excellence. And so we wanted to make sure that we were providing a really good quality service. So as soon as I started to work with other speech pathologists in my team, it
Mm-hmm.
was providing an excellent service from me, but it was also making sure that we were providing consistently high standards of service um, from all of my team and for our community and things as well. And that's the basis of where we started to work from.
I'm just reflecting on something you said a minute ago. That you wanted to start something on your own terms because you had a 5 and a 3-year-old. You wanted some flexibility in your lifestyle. I wonder if
Oh,
in
look,
hindsight.
retrospect is a wonderful thing, Jack. Like, I think, I thought opening the private practice and opening up my own business would free up time, and it was the reverse. It was just this crazy busy time. And it's, we are now, so that was in 2016,
Mhm,
and so we are now, 5 years down the track.
mhm,
And I'm only now at the point where I'm starting to see the fruits of that early labor, that
mhm.
I'm now just starting to get some more flexibility. But likewise too, I think it is, it is really good timing, because now when we are busier than what we've ever been with the children too, they've got so many extracurricular activities, and their school demands, requires a lot more from us. Um, we're now at the place where I can invest that time with the family as well. So I don't regret the timing, but yeah, it was initially those first few years I was thinking, what am I doing?
Glad you planted the tree 5 or 6 years ago, hey?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so paint a picture of your clinic now, and then we'll have a look at the journey. But can you maybe explain the state of the union of a growing understanding at the moment?
Yeah, at the moment, as it stands today, we have got 21 speech pathologists
Well done.
and a team of about 11 client experience officers. And we operate currently across 3 locations, so Newcastle, Lake Macquarie and Port Stephens, which are all around the Newcastle area or the Newcastle region.
Hmm.
In 6 weeks' time, we'll be opening up our 4th location, which is going to be in East Maitland, so the Lower Hunter area, and the team will continue to grow. I don't, I don't, we won't be expanding to beyond further sites than the 4.
Hmm.
We might change physical location within those areas, but we will stick to the 4 locations. And the plan will be to have, quite large teams at each of those locations, and as the demand grows. So it has grown quite rapidly over those few years. It was starting from me working part-time in 2016, and I had my first team members come on board in 2017,
Hmm.
and they're still with me, and they're still on this journey with me
Wow.
as part of the team. And we've just continued to grow and expand across those locations, and with new team members coming on board.
So that's a phenomenal. Congratulations, and it's a testament to sustained hard work over years and years. So well done. There's a couple of threads that I want to pull on. one, when it comes to recruitment and finding 21 species in 5 years is no mean feat. Attracting that number of clients is no mean feat. And then also what's changed in you as a leader and as a health professional. So can you perhaps speak to recruitment? Has that been easy and smooth sailing, or what have you done that's worked? Talk to us about that.
I do feel very fortunate about how we've been able to attract so many speech pathologists to the team and to the service, but I also feel really grateful for the quality of the speech pathologists that we have. So for me, yes, it's a large number, but they're actually a really great fit for our team and for our service and for our culture as well. I genuinely enjoy spending time with my team, and I love I love the culture that we have within our whole service, that they are genuinely amazing speech pathologists and just really good humans as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what's, I think part of how I've been successful in the recruitment is that we've got a lot of like-minded people. We're very different. There's a lot of differences within the team, and I wouldn't say that we are all alike, but we do all have similar values, or we do enjoy spending time and connecting with each other as well. So the culture that we have has helped with the recruitment. And I think our values and that alignment with our values and how we operate has
Mm-hmm.
helped with the recruitment. We make it very clear about who we are
Mm-hmm.
and who we want to be, and that we share that with all of our community.
Mm-hmm.
and and I think so we've been very grateful to be able to attract a lot of like-minded individuals, and I think we'll be able to continue to have that growing team. We've
Mm-hmm.
got 9 new graduate speech pathologists ready to start for next year.
Hey.
So we've already got an expanding team even from the 21 that stands today. We've got more for next year, and we will continue to grow, and it's going to grow sustainably by
Mm-hmm.
making sure that we've got those structures and supports in place within the team, that they are aligned with our service and our vision, and also making sure that we can maintain the quality of our service as well, because that ties into our reputation and our brand.
You mentioned a couple of times there the word attract. So how do you how have you created this essentially a magnet that seems to attract, 9, I think it was at 12 at the start of this year, you're attracting quality speech pathologists. How?
Uh, it's a question that we discuss it a lot, particularly within our mastermind pods and things within the CM community. And for me, it is having those conversations. We're speech pathologists, we like to talk quite a lot, but I think it's having lots of conversations with our speech pathology community, and finding people that align with us. So people know about us. We're a large entity now, and people
Mm.
know about us. They, in the general community, they have heard of a growing understanding. And I think that individually, a number of our speech pathologists have their own profile that they're putting out there as well. So they've got their own unique set of skills and strengths.
Mhm.
And so people want to be a part of that community as
So
well.
you've created a brand, an awareness, a presence, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's what it is that, yeah, people are aware of us. They see our purple shirts, and
Yeah.
they identify about who we are and what we're about, and then they also identify with particular people within our purple community that, yeah, that they want to align themselves with. And so when I say attraction, we do put it out there that we are always recruiting and that we are always growing, and we are seeking certain types of people, and having those conversations can certainly help.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well done. Unreal. So when you put on next year 9 people at one time, you need to fill their caseloads. And so how have you gone about creating awareness in the community, attracting a client base, those types of things?
For so long, that was my key focus within my coaching sessions. And what I really needed to focus on in growing a business was getting that client attraction and to try and build our caseloads. We've been really fortunate that for most of our journey, we haven't had a waiting list because we've been able to have more team members than what we have clients. So I think that in itself, at the moment and in the current climate, is helpful for us to be able to attract clients,
Mm-hmm.
is that we are one of the services that doesn't have a waiting list, or that it's a very limited waiting list for some of our sites.
Sure.
Simply because we've had the supply of the workforce to
Mm-hmm.
be able to meet the community needs. And so many services have wait lists because there is such a shortage of professionals to be able to provide that service. So that's one of the ways it's really helped us, is that we have been able to supply a service where there are demands in other areas.
So I'm curious on that, if I can though.
Yeah.
Waitlists becomes synonymous with speech pathology in a lot of environments. Has it been a deliberate thing for you to continually hire and recruit, even though you didn't have the waitlist, but to have the capacity? Was that really strategic on your part?
I wouldn't say strategic. I don't have a very great strategic brain, Jack. I
Come
I
on.
always say I always I'm a speech pathologist at heart, and I always say I don't have a maths brain. I don't have the brain for finances, and I don't think I have much of a strategy brain. In the sense that I have got a good vision for where I want us to go,
Right.
but that strategy to get us there, that's where I really lean on the support of coaching and resources and other colleagues, because I find it challenging to get there. So I wouldn't necessarily say strategy, but when a team member or a prospective team member comes to me and I think that they're a good fit for our service, they're a good fit for our service regardless of the timing, is probably the lesson that I've learned over time.
Right.
So I would rather have a speech pathologist and have them on our team and working with us and build their caseload over time, rather than having a caseload that they can then just step into.
Sure.
So for me, having the team has been the priority, which has then helped with getting the caseload over time. So that's probably been
Gotcha.
the if there is a strategy, that would be it, is that I'm not necessarily I want to find people that are a good fit for us, and then that way we will be able to support the clients to be able to receive the service, because we've got the supply of the speech pathologists there.
So good. So tell me about your role. You still call yourself a speech pathologist. Do you get to see patients or clients much, or what does the average week for Lauren Haskins look like?
It's really interesting. It really is an identity shift. I still call myself a speech pathologist. I have started to reduce the number of clients that I see, and now in a typical week I don't see clients.
Okay.
Um, but that's one of my desire statements. One of the things that I want to go back to and I want to work towards is I really enjoy working with the children and families.
Hmm.
And for so long, so probably for the last 12 months at least, I felt like I was living outside of that value of excellence, in that because of the business demands and the team demands and the service demands, that I
Mm.
wasn't providing that quality care to the children and families that I was working with, that I wanted to provide. And so that level of excellence wasn't
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
And so that really sat uncomfortably for me. And so now that's where I made the decision to step back from doing that clinical work that I really enjoy and that I really love. And once the autonomy for me and that freedom and flexibility, the time that will be freed up, that's where I hope to be able to return to doing some clinical work. So the goal for me is not to come off the tools.
Hmm.
That's really just the way of being able to to get to the point where I can return to seeing children and families is by working on the business and setting up the structures to allow me to then go back to providing that clinical work. So a typical week for me at the moment, particularly during the C word, during this pandemic that we're experiencing, my hours have increased. So I'm now working the 5 days again. I had the goal for this year was to work 3 school hour days. My children made the goal. So we are very intentional, and we talk about the goals with the children and the family for the year ahead. And their goal was that they didn't have to attend USH or out of school care.
Okay.
For this year, and so that just put the pressure right back on me that that okay, that's what we're doing. So we didn't enroll them in USH, and so I was planning on working 3 school hour days this year. I'm working 5 school hour days, which is manageable for the time being, and I'll reduce back down to the 3 school hour days once life settles down a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly it's doing meetings and supports and catch ups with my team.
Yeah, with those
And
35 odd people to remember their
yeah.
names.
That's an easy thing for me. The names are easy. And just connecting with the team and
Yeah.
making sure that they're doing okay, and building those structures and building things for the future. So I mentioned that we're opening at the moment in Maitland in a couple of weeks, and so doing a lot of the planning for that. Future planning for the business is probably how I spend a lot of the time. So with the team, and for the future.
And I think that's an interesting point you mentioned, that future planning. You said maybe not strategy, but vision for you and people is a key. And it sounds like in the earlier days, there was a lot of pragmatic, right, I need to recruit and I need to put in this system and I need to get these clients. And now your time's spent more on leadership rather than management, and strategy rather than structures. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, completely. And I'm that's been the big learning for me, is learning about the difference between leadership and management, and and really that personally that fits really nicely for me too, because some of the challenges that I've had professionally over the years have been with the management structures that have been in place in organizations. And that idea of leadership,
Mm-hmm.
really speaks to how I like to run my service and how I like to run my team.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I want to inspire them, and I want to encourage them, and I want to lead them to be able to do their best work, and that then allows me to do my best work. And so that leadership is probably that resonates with me, and I like to sit in that leader role.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, certainly I'm learning about how to be a business owner. That's part of my development over this time, is how do I do all of the things that I have never learned to do, and never needed to know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
But particularly how to start to build in some of those systems and strategies, and in order to be able to achieve the things that we want to achieve and do.
So you mentioned learning as a business owner. To what degree has Clinic Mastery played a role in that?
Hugely. It's been an instrumental role. The growth that we've experienced since being a part of Clinic Mastery, has been incredible. But the growth has not just been in the size of the team and in the service of the sites or those kind of things. The growth that I see has been for myself personally,
Mm-hmm.
personally and professionally. But I've seen so much growth in my skills and my understanding as a business owner and as a clinic owner. But what I love is the growth that I see in my team. So our team and our service is one of the first things that I share with them, is that we are a part of the Clinic Mastery community, and that I access a range of different professional coaching that's not just for me, it's for our service and for our team. And so the growth in the individuals has been incredible to watch and observe. So, you know, we've got one of our CEOs, so our client experience officers, she started with us a couple of years ago now. And she was on the front desk and she was providing that client experience officer role, and she has had lots of involvement with clinic mastery over the years, and she's been involved in training face to face as well as online, and she sees the work that I'm doing and we discuss it and incorporate it. And she's now taken on our operational lead role, so she's taken a really active role in the business and that business development. And so it's been a progression of her skills and her leadership over that time as well. And that's just one of the individuals that we've seen that growth and that pathway progression. But it has been as a result of those learnings and the network of supports as part of clinic mastery.
What originally attracted you to CM versus maybe some other opportunities?
I laugh because my husband had a conversation with me, and he's incredibly supportive, and he says that this makes him sound horrible, and I don't think it does, because it's just a very real discussion. And it was one of those quiet moments that you have once the kids go to bed and you're sitting down for the day and you're talking about your day and you're talking about, you know, life in general. And he made a comment to me and said, I love what you're doing with a growing understanding, and when do you think that it will no longer be a hobby and we might actually start earning a wage from a growing understanding? And that was his very nice way of saying, okay, you've got to really look at this now. It's no longer just something nice to do. And because I had the security of my wage with health, and I was working part-time for both, and so it really became, I was reliant on that. And so I hadn't thought about a growing understanding as being an opportunity for me to be able to generate an income. And so that was part of it. I think then I started to engage with some of the information that I was seeing on social media. And my first touch point for clinic mastery was attending an admin mastery event that was held down in Adelaide. So I was down in Adelaide visiting family at the time when a admin mastery event was occurring. And for me, that was a chance to experience what it was about, to provide really good client experiences. And so that was my first touch point. And then when I attended that event, I met with Daniel Gibbs, who was there, and Rebecca Clare, and I was able to chat with them about what it looked like and how potentially the business academy might be a nice alternative to admin mastery, that might be something to be involved with. So yeah, that was really the start of it for me.
I'm a physiotherapist and Daniel's a podiatrist. And so I think most, obviously the listeners of the podcast would be familiar with me in a lot of senses, and I'm a physio. How have you found it as a speech pathologist in a community of all sorts of allied health professionals?
Amazing. I think it's always really great to get different perspectives on how to do things. And I think what's really great is that we're seeing more pediatric therapists come into the mix of the professionals that are within CM, because I think that's probably the biggest difference between the professions, is not so much about what profession you're in, but the demographic that you service. So I think we're seeing a lot more pediatric therapists come into the community, and that's been really helpful. But it's still always great to hear how the different professions do things, and there are so much overlap in what we do. And at the end of the day, all of the different professions are providing care to people.
Yeah.
And then it's just about how that experience translates to your specific caseload, your specific service. And so that's probably been a surprising thing for me, because there weren't a whole lot of speech pathologists within the community, and I wondered what that would look like. But it hasn't been an issue at all, because everything does translate across the different professions.
And so, Lauren, there's so many health professionals and clinic owners listening here now. If you could, let's talk to two different types of clinic owners. Yeah, maybe those solo heroes or in that startup early grind. What would you say to those clinic owners?
I would really, I would tell them, and then I'd encourage them to be really thinking about what their end game was looking like. So for me, I had no idea that what I wanted would be to work in a large team. That's not something that I thought about, and it was really only when I dove into thinking about what my vision was and reflecting on where I saw myself in 5 years' time that I realized that I needed to grow a team. So to really feel like to think about where you want to be and to reflect on that. Because if you want to be a solo clinician and you want to be working on your own and you're really comfortable with that, then that's awesome, and stay there and maximize that space as much as you can. But if you want to grow a team, have that vision, and like what you alluded to, or we've been talking about, is get support and get coaching to be able to then develop the strategy or the resources that are required in order to be able to grow the team. But know where you are at, and is that in alignment with where you want to be.
Mm. And I think, on a slight tangent, it's something that I've been impressed by with you is that you're constantly reimagining yourself and what is that vision, what is that desire statement. Even just a couple of months ago we were hanging out at Noosa and the spreadsheet kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I love that because it's a commitment to that lifelong process. It's really good advice. If you were then to think about maybe the larger clinic owner, someone with a team of 20 and they're juggling a significant business, perhaps they're feeling a little bit out of their depth or they've stumbled across business success, what would your advice be to the larger clinic owner?
This is something that I'm always, and as of yesterday, I'm only making sure that I follow my own advice, that making sure that, do as I say, not as I do. But find the people. I mean, I'm a supporter role, so I have that profile, and so I'm always looking for who I need to be able to help me. But find the people that can help you to achieve the goals that you have for yourself. And I say that because, and I say I was only reflecting upon it yesterday. I've still been doing payroll, so I still do the payroll for
Right.
my service and for my team every fortnight on a Sunday. So, that's a good couple of hours each Sunday that I dedicate to sit down and do the payroll for my team, of 32.
Uh-huh.
And that's a significant investment of my time, but I do it because I could have control over my finances. I could have control over the way that I could see who was working and how that all looks and feeds into the numbers. And so it was only yesterday that I was speaking with my bookkeeper, and he asked me, and he said, so when are you going to have somebody take over the payroll for you? And so it was taking that moment to go, you know what, yeah, I can get you to do that now. And, I'm okay with you doing the payroll. You've been doing everything else for so long in our accounts. You can do the payroll. But I think sometimes taking that moment to think about who can help me and who can I use or who can I train up, or who can I use, or who can I have that's going to help me to achieve the goals that I have, whether it's personally or within the business.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to make your life easier? And sometimes finding the right people are important for that.
Love that. That's really good advice. Hey, we're really proud of you. You've done an amazing job with your clinic and continue and will continue to do so. And, you're a real leader in the speech pathology world and broader allied health community. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with the Grow Your Clinic podcast listeners today, Lauren.
Thank you, Jack. And as always, thank you so much to you and to the Clinic Mastery community for all the support, because I think it's only because of that support that we've been able to have the successes that we've had.
Love that. And listeners, again, we'll link everything up for Lauren's social profiles and her clinic, A Growing Understanding, over at clinicmastery.com/podcast. Lauren, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Jack.
And listeners, thank you for joining us. Can't wait to bring you another episode of the podcast again really soon. Bye for now.